What's up, guys? Special guest today, uh, Philadelphia Eagle, Minnesota Viking, great friend of mine, and Mr. 275, if I'm not mistaken, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. What's going on, brother?
All good, man. How you guys doing?
Doing
Doing
good.
good, man. I got my brother J. Joe here with me. Um, just going back to Philly, man. You being drafted there. Um, Tell me what that was like, the experience and things in Philly.
Well, the thing about the league is you can't control where you're going to go. And grew up in Ohio, went to Ohio State, and it was definitely an eye opener for me being in a big city. Just the hustle and bustle and just all the different options. And as a young person, if you want to find it, it's out there. And Philadelphia, it was just a little too much for me. Great football team, Buddy Ryan, team dominated by the defense, looking for some offensive playmakers. But Randall Cunningham going into his second year, so very, very exciting times, and a lot of great guys in the locker room who would ultimately, take me under their wing and taught me a lot of different things. But truly a great sports town, but you have to have different levels of maturity when you go from the Midwest or Ohio and you're going into a city. And if you try to engage in that street life and things like that, it's easy to get caught up. And I'm sure you've seen that. But that was, that's my overall impression of being drafted by Philadelphia and spending 3 years there.
And speaking of Buddy Ryan, talk about that. Talk about that experience. He seemed like I've never got a chance to meet him. He seemed like a very fiery coach, man. So talk about him a little bit and being
Definitely
playing
a
for him.
very fiery coach. I think that his overall defensive philosophy and blitzing the quarterback, I think that it's not great to practice against because when you're blitzing, playing a lot of man to man, you're coming after your own quarterback. I thought it developed a lot of animosity, amongst the team. So that when we went out on the field, we were three different units: the offense, the defense, which was dominant, and the special team. So I think that really hurt our chance of maximizing the squad because of its overall intensity and how the defense pretty much dominated the team. And you have to have balance throughout your units.
Right. And I wanted to ask something else, but I'm gonna stay up there with Philadelphia. Talk about your time when you was in Philly to have a chance to be around a guy like Reggie White.
Reggie was amazing. Like he truly was. He was the first man to ever tell me that he loved me. Me growing up, seven kids, no father in the home. That was that was something very, very different. And Reggie was, one of those Christians who was exactly how he portrayed himself. He wasn't two or three different people, depending on what audience. He was consistent. But Reggie was a big, fun loving guy. He joked and hung around with the best of the best and the worst of the worst on the team. So Reggie was a great role model for me. The impact he had on me in day to day and how to be a man and how to function in the NFL and how to do it at a high level and have balance. Like that's who Reggie White. That was what he kind of embodied.
All right. And another question I had, like personally for myself, I like to always play basketball in the off season and then, do that. And I always felt like it kept me in tip top shape, just to prepare myself to chase around the receivers in the NFL. And before you ever really got started to get to Ohio State, you pretty much, you wanted to follow in your big brother footsteps and, chase a career in basketball. Can you talk about that a little bit? Your brother being drafted by the Lakers in the NBA.
Yeah, actually, I was the youngest of four boys. All of them went on basketball scholarships. My oldest brother went to the NBA. So I would say, from a family standpoint, there was a lot of pressure on me to play football. And in high school, I literally was a better basketball player throughout my high school career than I thought as a football player. And Dre will understand this, that in basketball is a game of angles. And I love the angles. And playing wide receiver and defensive back is a game of angles. And that type of math, I always enjoyed working it in my head. And I felt like It gave me an advantage. I felt like rebounding was like going to the ball at its apex. And I felt like I could do that better than anyone else. So I think that a lot of the skills from the two sports, being receiver, basketball, defensive back basketball, I believe that they transfer over, that become functionable, that you can utilize them. So a lot of times, if you're running a choice route, you just basically posting up on a guy and you're utilizing your footwork at the top of the route to be able to get position so that they can still feed you just like you were in the post. So I thought the skills were very, very transferable. But then once I became one sport and you start donating all your time to the tricks and the fundamentals, I was amazed at just how much better that I got in football when I wasn't playing basketball. But basketball was a huge asset, not only to me, but a bunch of other guys. Fitzgerald played a lot of basketball. I know when we were younger, Moss, when he came into the league, we played a lot of basketball together. Paul Pepper, we played a lot of basketball together. Brad Johnson, like all of us hooped together.
Speaking of Randy Moss and Brad, I know you played with them in Minnesota. Um, you going over to Minnesota. Speak about that and your time there and what that was like.
Right. Even though in Philadelphia, because I had an abbreviated rookie season, because I was in the supplemental draft, which didn't happen until the beginning of September. So I missed all the training camp, all mini camp. So I could really only make just a slight contribution to the Eagles in my first year. But my second year, after the mini camps, OTAs, I started all 17 games. My third year, I started all 17 games. But when I got cut, I thought that I'd be going right to Minnesota and taking over where I was in Philadelphia, and that's not the case. They had Anthony Carter was their featured wide receiver, and he played my position, X receiver. And then they had Hassan Jones from Florida State playing the Z, Steve Jordan, all pro playing tight end. So I was a backup immediately. So it was a tough adjustment. So I just immediately started going on scout team. I started getting as many reps as I could. I started trying to tear them defensive backs they face them. Like I was getting all the reps. The coach would have to take me out. Like I was in there like, no. They throw that card up there. I'm like, okay, who got the red dot on? Okay, I'm him. And I just started working the dude. And the receiver coach at the time, he put me right behind Anthony Carter at X. And I was like, I knew Anthony, even though he was a Pro Bowl player, like he was a little out of position at X because he was a small guy with speed and quickness. And if you're going to be an X, man, you got to be a big dude. Right. I mean, and I just thought that they weren't giving me a fair shake. So I just went, man, just total practice mode. I'm getting ready to prove to these guys. So in that season, I started 5 games, and I think 3 or 4 of them I went over 100 yards. So when the season ended, we hired Dennis Green, and then he also hired Tom Moore, and they called me and said they were going to build the offense around me. So if Dennis Green wouldn't have came there, man, I don't know what would have happened in Minnesota. Like I would have been like a lot of guys, man. When you go to another team, they move you back. And then if you don't have a system that's going to help you develop your skills that you can dominate in some type of way, like it's hard to be a dominant player in this league, So if you get on the wrong team and they run the wrong system and you don't have someone that's looking out for you, man, it's really hard to be great in this league. And I'm sure you both can relate to that.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. I tell people a lot about that, about Coach Kubiak. I think if Coach Kubiak never came here, I think once he got here, that's what elevated my game, and he built, a lot of things around me. So I can definitely relate to that. Let's talk about another receiver you played with, man, Randy Moss. Talk about him, man, and Randy Moss was a freak of nature, man. He was, one of the favorite guys I loved watching when I was in high school, of course. But just a hell of an athlete, hell of a basketball player also. Talk about him a little bit.
Well, the thing about Moss, Dre, is, especially if you're a wide receiver, Moss was the first guy, and when Randy came to Minnesota, I had already made 5 straight Pro Bowls.
All right.
So, and I'm not saying that to say that I was a good player. I'm just saying that when we went to the Pro Bowl, me and the other receivers would work on stuff. Like we would do stuff. Like, okay, what do you think here? If you get this look on a comeback, he's inside, what you gonna do? If he stays head up to you outside, I get to 16, 18, what do I do? Like we would trade, secrets and stuff.
Right.
And we were going against Aeneas Williams, Dion, Darrell Green, John Lynch. Well, Lynch wasn't covering us, but he was out there on the field.
Right.
But we used to be competitive, and then they used to be exchanging things with us as wide receivers. But as soon as we drafted Randy, I told him, you got to come to Florida and you got to work out, with me and Boca, because that's where we get it done.
Right.
And he immediately moved down and started working out with us. But Randy could actually do things that I couldn't do, but I could think about. Even like on a deep dig, Dre, you run that deep dig, you bust it off, and sometimes you'll speed cut it, or sometimes you'll go up and square it off.
Right.
I used to tell Randy, man, you have such great athletic ability. You can get to the top, look that way, and still beat the guy across that. Now, I couldn't do that because I would get stuck in the top.
Right.
And he could do things that I had never seen guys do. He could get up to top speed and do things. And then I allowed him a lot of leeway. Like when we used to run a 10-yard stop, I used to tell him, Moss, you don't have to come back to the quarterback because the dude is giving you so much cushion. Just come off 10 and just come off soft at the top and let the ball come to you. Typically, you can't do that. You have to tell guys, hey, man, you got to eat up that space, go back to the quarterback. But his overall athletic ability was probably the number one thing that stood out. Was a freaky athlete. And he's 6'4", and he wears a size 14 shoe, but he moves like he's 5'8" with a size 8 shoe. And the way he can get in and out of off the jam where people can't get their hands on him, and he's stronger than he appears. Like he ain't gonna never win no bench press contest, but you just can't run up on him and just manhandle him. But the number 2 attribute was he was like a football genius. Like I would tell him something or I would show him something on tape and he'd be like, all right, man, I got it. And like his brain was almost photographic and he was a quick study. Like we were like, hey, bro, we're going to teach you 3 routes, man. A little stop, a little slant, and hit it to the house. That's all you need to know right now, for the first couple of weeks. Then he was like, no, man, give it all to me. And then we were able to unveil the whole route tree to him. So people don't ever give great athletes credit for being brilliant or being smart, especially if they're black. But he's like Dion. Dion was a brilliant cover guy. Yeah, athletic, yeah, flashy, but brilliant. And that's what Randy Moss was. And that's what Bill Belichick and Tom Brady saw him when they got him to New England. And that's why they were able to play at the level they were, because remember some other receivers had some problems going to New England. Running their offense. not Moss.
Right.
Not Moss. Like he is that kind of, and I just think that people never give him credit for that. And I was able to see it and witness it. And it was pretty special.
Yeah, I think you can't leave yourself off that list. I've watched you pretty much, I've seen you get up on their toes and give them a little something. And I've always thought to myself, I was like, he way more smarter than people think just from watching, because, when I study receivers, some just run the route, get open, but some know how to set it up and get open. And like you talked about, not having the ability and things like of Randy Moss, but still able to produce at that same level. So who was someone that you kind of looked up to or showed you the ropes before you was able to get your career going into that direction?
Well, I think that, key people, when I got to Minnesota, Anthony Carter, like he was already an all-pro player. Like he was outstanding, running with the ball in traffic, very, very physical for even being a small guy, just unusual ability to make people miss. And I would think the guy that had the biggest impact on me is Mike Quick, who was in Philadelphia. He also announces for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he might be retired. This might be his last year, but he had made 4 Pro Bowls before I got there. Now, unfortunately, once I got there, the whole time, for the most part, his knees ended his career. But I think Mike made 5 Pro Bowls in his first 8 years in the NFL out of NC State. One of the great receivers, him and Sterling Sharp, guys that don't get recognition that were amazing. And because of injuries, it shortened their career. But Mike Quick, he really showed me how to be a pro, how to run routes. You know, he was a tall, slender guy, a lot like myself. And he really saw everything that was going to happen, that happened in Minnesota. He saw that happening in Philadelphia. And he always tells me, like we were playing golf last month, and he was like, man, I knew from the beginning that you had it, but you just a little crazy. It's just a matter of when you're going to put everything together to be able to get it. But Mike Quick, that's my guy.
Gotcha. So, what were you able to do throughout your career? Like you said early on, you had a season where you probably played 5 or 6 games with the supplemental draft and things. But throughout your career, you played 16 seasons, but 13 of those seasons, you was able to play the full 16 games. So, pretty much, you was durable throughout your whole career. What things throughout the off season or during the season help you sustain that?
Wow, that's amazing that you point that out because, you know, to me, that's one of the most important things. You know, are you available to your teammates? And, you know, to me, when you walk away from this game, you know, we all have the same opportunity. So when I walk away, I just didn't want to have any regrets. So for me, from a nutrition standpoint, from a training standpoint, from the staff, from the company that I had, the people around me, they really put my body in position to be able to do those extraordinary things. And I always made practice a priority. I always wanted to be real, real good in practice. And that came from my Ohio State days. Like they make you practice there. I know at the U, Dre, y'all got legendary stories, backup, scout team, NFL dudes on the scout team, fighting workouts, like to try to stay with the other NFL athletes that are on the squad. Like, so that to me stayed with me. And it was always important to me to practice and to practice well. And at training camp, it was always important to participate in training camp and get in the best shape with my teammates so that when we get it on the line, they know that I had paid the same price that they had paid.
I I mean, just listening to that, you know, and watching you play, um, that you had to have learn that work ethic from somewhere. Where would you dedicate? Like, say you got your work ethic from?
I've always been like this, Dre. I've always been about running. I've always been about playing a couple of sports. Even as a young player,
Mm.
I used to carry a 15, 20-pound weight vest about 3/4 of a mile down to the stadium, the local stadium, the high school stadium, the little league stadium, and I used to break in. And then my brother at the time, when I got to the ninth grade, he was playing for the Lakers. So he told me that Magic Johnson was doing these bounding exercises on the stadium with a weight vest, and he was running up and down the stadium with weight vest. And he sent me one. And man, I used to walk down there, man, 3 or 4 days a week. And that's how I ended up getting the vertical leap that I had. It was, 38 inches or more. And that's how my overall athleticism changed. But I've been like a runner and a trainer like since I was little. And there was a guy at the stadium that used to, because I literally used to have to break in to get in. And he literally used to run me off. He used to call me all kind of N words. He used to call me all kinds of stuff. And now today in my hometown, that stadium's named after me. And to me, it's a tribute to working hard. And athletic ability is a gift from God. But what you do with that athletic ability is your gift back to Him. And I always knew that training was a key part to being a pro athlete. And that's all I've ever wanted to be. I never wanted to be nothing else. No fireman or go to army. No, I wanted to be a pro athlete. The people I read about were pro athletes. The people I aspired to be like, the people I looked up to, they were pro athletes. No one else. So to me, that's a key component to being great is, are you a grinder? And Dre, I know that's one of the big reasons why you will be inducted this summer in the Hall because your stories are legendary from high school, college, and then in Houston. But those are some of the traits you're going to find out when you start talking to guys and you get to meet us more. You're going to be like,
Right.
man, we got so much in common. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we understand each other. And all of us have gone to extremes to get the best out of our ability. And that's the commonality.
Right. So, I could also say, like, I know there was a point, like, I know for me, like, after I played my rookie year, there was a point where I was just like, you know what, I can play in this league. You know, I can dominate in this league. When did you feel like you belong?
Well, for one, people try to downplay playing at a big school. And people try to downplay being on a team that's got NFL dudes on it. But you can't downplay that.
Right.
Because when you get that experience breeds confidence. And confidence will bring out the best in you. Just like doubt will bring out the worst in you, confidence will bring out the best in you. So when you go to Miami, when you go to Ohio State and you play in them big games and them stadiums are full and you do great things against guys who get drafted and playing in the NFL. And the guys who played before you in the NFL, they doing all right. And the guys after you, they in the NFL now and they're doing all right. It's like, man, I was meant to play this. Now it's how can I maximize my moment? And you will get matchups. You will have reps against guys, and you will take snapshots and be like, okay, all right, that's positive. If I can do that, if I can duplicate that, then I can play here. So you get little glimpses along the way, but I think success in college at the highest level, playing against dudes in the NFL, that gives you that little confidence to be. And then once you get drafted, it's like once you come in that locker room, it's like, okay, I got to show up. I'm getting paid for this now.
Right.
Like, then you have to show up and live up to the reputation. All-American, first team, Andre Johnson. First team, All-American, Cris Carter. Those dudes know that. So now if they put a game plan around that to highlight my strengths and hide my weaknesses and give me some experience, positive ones before I get crushed. There's so many young players that they get crushed early. They lose their confidence and they just shell of themselves. It's like, oh man, this guy won the Heisman Trophy. And the next thing you know, 3 or 4 years later, he's announcing college football games. Oh, yeah, we got a couple guys like that. they get crunched early in their career, and they don't recover, and their confidence never recovers.
Right.
Gotcha. So, like from a leadership standpoint, because obviously in the NFL, there's only a few guys that can go up and down the sideline, and get on guys that's on the defensive side or guys that's on the special teams unit. And just from looking back, watching film and seeing things, you're a fiery guy. You're into the game at all times. You understand every situation of the game. Pretty much, what other people's jobs should be doing and what they should be doing and holding guys accountable. What kind of led you to get to that moment where I can go out, I can get on a guy, I can ride a guy hard and he can respond. I can hold guys accountable and be that leader in the locker room?
Well, number one thing is that's my personality. Now, that's not an excuse for it, but that is my personality. Now, my personality is developed in the right way, with the right leadership tools. But ever since I was 8 years old, the coach is like, what position you play? I said, I play quarterback. He's like, you ever play football? No, but I play football. That's what I play. All right. I'm the one going to get the snap and direct it because I love football. No one's going to watch more film than me. No one knew the offensive system better than me. No one knew all the 4 or 5 receiver positions better than me. No one's going to work harder than me. No one's going to be there earlier than me. No one's going to stay later than me. And guess what, bro? Ain't nobody getting ready to play better than me. So guess what I'm getting ready to do? I'm getting ready to say what I want out here. All right? Because I'm consistent with it. I talk about it every single day, greatness and how we can do this together. I'm not just out there pulling shots. There's a sense of accountability. And guys don't like to be held accountable. Bill Belichick, when they were in those six Super Bowls with Tom Brady, he used to have the good, the bad, and the ugly every Monday after the game. And he used to start with the ugly. And that used to be Tom Brady. And that was kind of the mantra for the organization and the team. But guys don't like to be called out. They say they want to be better, but they ain't. And most of the time, guys ain't too tough. They're so sensitive. But if you're going to get the absolute best from people, you got to go to push them in places that they won't go. You got to go to say things that they're uncomfortable with, and then they got to trust you. Now, I'm not just saying you can just say anything. In trying to be a great leader, sometimes you will say the wrong thing, but it's in a pursuit to say the right thing. So I held guys accountable, but they could hold me accountable too, and I was consistent. So I never thought I was better than them, even though some of them thought that I was better than them. I thought that I had paid the price. I had watched great leaders, Randall Cunningham, Reggie White. I had watched those guys. And when I got to Minnesota, they had great leaders there, Rich Gannon, Wade Wilson, Scott Studwell, and I watched them, Chris Doman. And then it was time for me to lead because I was born to be a leader. I was not born to be a follower at all times. Now, to be a great leader, you got to be a good follower. But when it's time for you to lead, it's time for you to lead. I hope I answered your question.
Oh, no question. So when you was in Minnesota, you get there, you have a second time to play with Cunningham in Minnesota. And, everybody know about that prolific offense you had. Just talk about, obviously the league transitioning because, it was a run-heavy league back, early 90s and things like that. But you was able to produce at a high level, multiple seasons over 100 yards, receptions, touchdown catching machine. I think when you were done and hung them up, you had the second most all-time leading yards with touchdowns. So just talk about being in an era where it was a run-dominant era, but still able to produce at a high level, and the league transitioning into opening it up and being in a pass-heavy offense with Robert Smith, Cunningham, and those guys.
Yeah, it was definitely a transition, but it's all about trust. And, I came from, Ohio State. They weren't trying to throw that ball. Like, I tell receivers, you have to convince coaches to throw you the ball. I don't care who you are. I told Moss that when he got there, man, you have to convince Dennis Green to throw you the football. So every receiver's job is to convince that coaching staff, when we running routes, when we doing install, if we're trying to win, then him being involved in the winning part is essential. So that's when I always try to emphasize that that's important. Like that part of the game it's very important. So they're not going to get a lot of attempts. Like when you come into the league, you get one or two targets, and they got talented guys everywhere. So you have to make the most of your targets, and then you have to put yourself in a situation that I'm the best option on this team. And you have to convince the quarterback, the coordinator, and all those in charge of that, I'm the best option on this team. Throw me the ball the maximum amount of time. You're trying to get up to 8 to 10 targets. When you start getting 8 to 10 targets, man, you can start cooking dudes. Because now you can start setting them up because you don't have to worry. You don't have that anxiety that, I'm only going to get maybe a ball a quarter. So you can start playing chess and compared to checkers. Checkers is worried about every single move. Chess is like, man, I'm getting ready to do this. And in the fourth quarter, I'm getting ready to give him a double move and take him to the house. So I was okay with the transition. I happened to be able to play when we started throwing the ball a little more, but I didn't take that for granted. When we played 3 receivers and opened it up, like you have to maximize your attempts at getting thrown the football. If not, they will go somewhere else. Like, man, we had myself, Randy Moss, Jake Reed, Andrew Glover at tight end, Robert Smith. Man, we had so many options. It's like, bro, me and Moss used to talk about, hey, bro, if you drop it, you ain't gonna get the ball for a while. We ain't coming back over there to you for a minute, bro. So that's the way a competitive offensive team is going to be. And you have to take, because there's no excuses, man. Oh, we didn't throw the ball, or we didn't you convince those coaches you can get numbers no matter where you play. Like you got to make those guys throw you the ball. At Miami, they wasn't just chucking the ball. They had all them running backs. And they was running. Then play action. And then y'all's quarterback started getting better. Then y'all started being, but Miami was a running physical football team. We did not come into the league catching 100 passes a year. No, we maximize our moment, which I do believe when you get in pro football, it makes you a little tougher mentally.
So tell me, a lot of people don't succeed or are not able to succeed when they're in that situation. So tell me how you were able to, do what you did and accomplish what you accomplished with playing with those quarterbacks.
Well, it was very hard. The game is harder, and you get frustrated, watching guys play the game the same position as you, and the game is made easier to them because they're playing with more talented people.
Right.
Like you watch guys playing in prime time games and be like, man, I want that opportunity for myself. But because of where I was drafted, the organization I ended up in, I'm not having that same opportunity. But that's why your story is so great. Because now all of us, all these guys had all these great quarterbacks. T.O., Steve Young, Jerry Rice had Steve Young and Joe Montana. Moss had Brady. All these guys, man, when you get Lynn Swan, he had Terry Bradshaw, Mike Irvin, always bragging about Troy Aikman. Now, I did have Warren Moon for 2 years, so I know Houston people love Warren Moon, so let the record state. Cris Carter and Warren Moon, 2 seasons. Bruh, we had 244 catches, 24 touchdowns in 2 years. So
that's crazy.
That's what really got my Hall of Fame career correct. Like playing with Warren, that got me some numbers that I wouldn't be able to get with other people. But it's a struggle, and a lot of that struggle, Dre, is internal because our expectations are so high for ourselves, and we know that we're better than what we're showcasing. And if we had someone to get us the ball, because I play a position that needs someone else to do well for me to do well.
Right.
And it's hard mentally, and you get disrespected. Like people disrespect your ability because you can't showcase your ability because of the lack of pure arm talent that you have at the position.
Right.
So it becomes very, very frustrating. Will man people ever respect my game? And there's nothing worse in life than disrespect. I don't care what you're doing.
Right.
And when you play at a high level and you work hard and you do everything the right way and you stay out of trouble and you say all the right stuff, like Dre, you expect to be rewarded for that. And when you don't have the stats because other guys have better stats in better situations, then we don't get the type of accolades that we should have. We don't get in the hall when we should get in. We have to wait because of the circumstances compared to the overall ability. So, man, I feel you. Like, I know you. And that's why delivering your jacket to you had such, to me, karma in the meaning, because I watched your whole career.
Right.
Like, I've watched the overall lack of respect for Andre Johnson your whole career.
Right.
So now we get ready to get that right. And that's what the Hall of Fame, it's the ultimate corrector. Okay, Well, how good was he? Well, he's one of the top 30 at his position all time. He's one of the top 400 football players of all time. There's only 25,000 of us played this game. I would say that's pretty good. Right. And that ends all the arguments. And now it's like, now they can give you your accolades. Oh, man, he was awesome. Yeah. You know how many highlight tapes you've been watching the last 3 months of you people like, man, that was Andre Johnson? Yes. So that's why this is awesome. And that's why I'm always about getting it right. Man, get the guys in that need to be in, man. Get it right because they deserve the flowers. The people that help them deserve their flowers, their mama. They deserve their flowers. Their brother and sister, they deserve their flowers. The organization, first organization Hall of Famer. Man, they had a Hall of Famer in their midst, and they didn't mess it up, Dre.
Right.
They got you to the Hall of Fame. The Texans need to get credit for this. Like, everybody need to get their stuff. And that's what this Hall of Fame, that's what the correction, that's what's getting ready to happen.
Yeah, I definitely think, I know for me, I would see, like you saying, guys being able to play with better quarterbacks. And, I can sense the same frustration you would say. Like, you sitting there, you watching the game, and you like, I know that dude's not better than me. That was I could remember sitting on my couch and, saying those same words when watching, some games. Tell me something that I know for me, like
I was at my first Pro Bowl. I got put in as an injury replacement for Sterling Sharp. I mean, great guy. He knew that I was an alternate, and we was in Atlanta. He's like, he called the NFL and was like, "Hey, I'm injured. I can't play." And then my agent called me immediately and got me in the game. So I'm in Hawaii, my first Pro Bowl. Andre Rison, Falcons, Michael Irvin, and Jerry Rice. And they're arguing in the locker room. This is 1993. They're arguing in the locker room. And he's like, "Hey, see, man, who you think is the best receiver amongst us?" And I was like, "Look at all your quarterbacks. I got over here with Jim McMahon.
Right.
Look who y'all got over here with." Yeah, I ain't got no answer for you. I think I'm better than all y'all. But I had to tell you that story because we have those things that are very, very similar and that have happened. And your personality is a little bit different than mine. See, Chris will say what he's thinking. Dre is thinking.
You right. I was gonna ask you, like, I know for me, like game day, right? Like once I put my shoulder pads on, you know, you have that moment when you're in the locker room. They call the different groups to go out. And I would never put my shoulder pads on until they said we had 2 minutes before it was time for us to go out on the field. And that was like a switch for me, like on game day. Like once I put them shoulder pads on, I went from Dre to whomever else, you know, without on the field. What was it for you that just got you going? Like what was it on game day that really got you, like just turned you from Cris Carter to whoever?
I used to always say to myself, "Man, they don't know who I am."
All right.
I used to always just repeat that, "Man, they don't know who I am. Man, they don't know what I'm about. Man, they don't know nothing about me. Man, they don't respect me." Those are the things I used to say to myself from the time I get to the arena.
Right.
And for me, I'm an energy guy. Now, I don't have to be saying anything to have energy, but I know how to measure my energy to build dude. I know I got to play with a lot of energy to get the best out of me. So for me, I'm tapping into myself. I got the game plan. I know the looks we're going to get. I know how they're going to try to defend me. So it's me against me. And I'm always talking about leaving a mark on the game. Leave a mark on a guy. When this guy get done with me, I'm going to leave a mark on him, right on his brain. He going to know he been with CC. I'm going to leave a mark on him. If I get one-on-one on the sideline, I'm going to act like I'm going out of bounds. I'm getting ready to leave a mark on him. I'm getting ready to try to hit him. I'm getting ready. So that conversation with myself would always go on back and forth and back and forth. And then if the DB says something and engages in it, then it's like, "Oh, okay, now I got a participant. Okay, let's go." Now it's personal. That's the way I played. And I had to play, even when I play basketball now, every Saturday, Sunday, the guy's like, "Why are you playing so hard? You act like you're playing for a championship." I don't know better. Like, I really don't know no better. I don't know how to play half go. I don't know how to, "Hey, this is my buddy over here" type thing. Like, I don't know how to do it. And that's one thing that you're going to see when you get in the Hall of Fame in the room and we go to the Ray Nitschke luncheon. And you know, like, man, all of us are the same. Yeah, crazy. Yes, all of us are the same. We all used to think that way. Oh my goodness. Like, and the stories just go back and forth. Man, Mean Joe Green tells me this story about when he gets drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, they drafted 3 or 4 other Hall of Famers in that same draft. But the Pittsburgh Steelers had a tradition from Chuck Noll, who was a drill sergeant. When they came out of the locker room, everyone would run a lap around the field, and then they would start stretching. Mean Joe Green came from Black College, came there, got drafted first round. When he came onto the field, he sat down with his helmet, and everybody ran away. And then the coaches came out there and said, "Joe, you know, I need you to run a lap and everything." Mean Joe Green, the first day with the Pittsburgh Steelers, said, "Man, take me where they hit me. I ain't coming for all that running."
Go ahead, Joe.
So there's so many stories, there's so many commonalities to guys that got them gold jackets that, I mean, it's one of the best things about being in the room, Dre, is that it's the first room that I felt like I wasn't out of place. I felt like the dudes got me. Like they understand me. Like Ray Lewis understands me. Bruce Smith understands me. Jerome Bettis, he understands me. Aeneas Swing, he understands me. Emmett Smith, he understands me. Michael Irvin, he understands me. Troy Aikman understands me. Dan Marino, he understands me. Joe Montana. And not just because we're all in the hall. I have had time to sit down with these dudes and discuss since I've been in 11 years.
Right.
And that's the thing that we can't tell you about the hall that is just so priceless, man. Man, the sense of belonging and people who understand you, Dre, will be at an all-time high.
Let me I remember when you came to my house. This is what made me think of this by what you just said. You told me, you say you feel just like everybody else until you get the knock. That was something you told me when you was at my house. Can you explain that a little? Because I've been saying that, in a few of my interviews I've done. Can you kind of explain that, what that kind of means, or how that feeling is?
Well, it's and I'm gonna tell you, man, it's one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced, and because of not getting in when I thought I was going to get in, and that frustration and that bitterness, it was all gone. It was like instantly, like good news, man, is never late. And it went from questioning it to such a relief of the acknowledgement that I had really pretty much forgotten about the process. And that's the way most of the guys are. Like the good news is typically right on time. And I'm glad the classmates that I went in with, and I just have such a greater respect for the process. And I try to tell guys, as I've been telling you the last couple years, hey, Dre, it's gonna happen, all right? Just be cool. Like, don't overreact like myself. It's painful though. It's because you can't catch 12 touchdowns this year. You ain't playing with C.J. Stroud. You can't get 1,400 yards again, Dre. You can't get 100, lead the league in reception yards 2 years in a row again. You can't do nothing about it. So it's frustrating because now you go back to what we talked about when you were building your career. Man, these people don't respect me. Right. Like I did all that training. I did all that stuff people didn't see, and they still don't respect my work. 14,000 yards. What? 77? What? Like I've never seen stats and stuff that were disrespected so much. Dudes got 14,000 yards. Like, put some respect on that. So when you get that knock, man, and like I knew that something was going to happen to you when you saw me. Because you know me well enough to know I ain't about no foolishness.
Right.
And I have my gold jacket on. I told you, bro, I rode because I was just getting back in town. Something happened. I rode on Southwest Airlines from Fort Lauderdale to Houston in a middle seat to give you your gold jacket.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. So,
but did that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think sometimes people, they always ask me about it, and I try to explain it to them. So I think having you on also, hearing your side of it, helps out a lot too. So I got one last question for you, man, before we let you go. Give me a top 5. I'm gonna put you on the spot. I know you gonna speak your mind anyway. Give me your top 5 receivers all time.
Top 5 receivers all time. All right. Now I'm not gonna go back into the archives. Anyone that played before the 70s and everything.
Right.
Everything in this conversation starts with Jerry Rice.
Yeah. Right.
Like, we witnessed the greatest receiver ever, and there ain't no doubt about it.
Right.
Okay, what he can do, the routes he can run, his overall durability, his mentality, his numbers in big games, his numbers in Super Bowls, the seasons he played. Like, he's in the stratosphere. He is the GOAT.
He's by himself. Yeah, he's by himself.
Yes. After that, I would go with the combination of, now I'm going to tell you, bro, I don't like doing this. But the guys that I have seen change the game and or played at a high enough level they deserve the respect. The first two names that come to my mind are Megatron and Randy Moss. Unusual size, played the position different than anybody else before them, 102 years before them.
Right.
Who would be the fourth best all-time receiver on Cris Carter's list? And I'm going to do what people don't think I'm going to do. I'm not going to include myself. I would give the last two spots, I would probably say Terrell Owens. He would be one of the top 5. And I really don't have a fifth guy, because I think in that fifth spot, I think a lot of us sit in that spot. I think Dre, you could be in that spot. I believe Larry Fitzgerald could be in that spot. I believe Cris Carter could be in that spot. I believe Michael Irvin could be in that spot. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, you're going to find out in the hall. Once you get in the hall, we all on the same team. Like, we don't play these games. Like, we all on the same team. All of us was bad as hell. And we on the same squad. But for productivity, doing these shows and everything, we oblige people by letting into our fraternity. But in the hall, we don't rate the play. Jim Brown, just like Emmitt Smith, just like Walter Payton. You can't take greatness from greatness.
Right.
So I'm going to leave the list at 4 and addendum, saying that there's a lot of people that have played at such a high level that would deserve considerations, even yourself included. Like, I raised Larry Fitzgerald, and I told him 1,000 times, you're not better than Andre Johnson. He's better than you. I'm talking about workouts and games, watching film, because I knew that would motivate him. And both of you were great players playing the same era, college and in the pro. Drafted when you're going to get drafted. So I used to always use that as a motivation. I've always used Andre Johnson as far as greatness, silent assassin, and doing things the right way.
Well, man, I can't agree with you more. I like that. I like that answer that you just gave. I like those 4 guys too.
Well, because I've messed this list up a few times. One time I was doing a list on Mike and Mike, and I tried to be funny and everything. And the guy said, what about Megatron? And I tried to be funny instead of saying I forgot. I was like, no, he's not on it. Man, dude went in the locker room, poured the Megatron. Next thing you know, I'm sitting in front of Megatron. Hey, bro, I'm sorry.
Right.
I made a mistake.
But nah, man, we appreciate you, man. Appreciate you for coming on and spending some time with us, man. Can't wait to see you in August, brother. Appreciate you so much for coming on with us today.
Yeah, bro, we're going to have a good time. Well-deserved. I look forward to being there every step of the way. And the Houston Texans, as they kick off their season, it's going to be great saluting you in Canton and them potentially doing some special things in 2024. That's what I'm looking in the crystal ball. That's what it's saying.
All right, man.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you for being yourself all times, being open for the guys to come up to talk to, just being a mentor, talking at the rookie symposium and all those things. I just want to say I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Any way I can help out, man. All love, bro.
All right, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Be good, man. We'll talk, Dre.
All right.